Somewhere behind the mountains, there is a place I figured out.
Hey guys, remember the first season of the TBS show, The Detour, and let's talk about the show, because I meant to finish the show a couple weeks ago. For some reason, I didn't finish it till now. I don't know why. It just went under my radar. But that's the best definition of this show, because this is a show that I really never had any intent of really watching. What ended up happening is that I figured out TBS, has a few new shows out. I didn't really think they were going to be all that great. TBS has never really been known for original content. However, recently they've been putting out some really good stuff. And I've heard their stuff has actually been really great. Search Party, People of Earth, all these shows I definitely do need to catch up on. So I figured, okay, let's just start that with The Detour. Didn't really think much of the show. Going into it, I really didn't have many expectations for the show. And I have to say, coming out, I was overall really impressed. I really did enjoy this first season. Now, it's not perfect. I do think this first season definitely does have some problems, especially problems for the future, which I'll definitely get into. But as a whole, I definitely didn't feel that this was a waste of time. I really enjoyed myself watching this season. I thought this was a lot of fun, and I definitely enjoyed seeing where the show goes from here. But let's get to the plot of the show, which the plot of the show is very unique for a TV comedy, because it starts off and you think this is your regular family comedy. You got a family here who basically they are making a trip from Syracuse, New York to Fort Lauderdale for what we think is a family vacation. That's what we think it is, at least. We don't really know why they're making this trip, but they end up experiencing a lot of delays because of all this other stuff going on, and we eventually find out that the reason that they're actually on the detour is because of their father, is because the patriarch of the family, Nate, he has been fired from his job, and he's trying to get away to find a new job, while also we have another story going on where the family has clearly been in something very bad, and it's so bad they're now being interrogated by the FBI, where Nate is now telling all the FBI agents this story, and it's kind of a frame story to kind of get us to realize, what's going on, see what actually happened, what put them here, and that is the basic plot of The Detour overall. But let's just get into the show, starting off with the cast. Now, that's really one of the things that elevates the show, because the cast here, no one really, I think, is that well known. There definitely are some actors that I've seen before, but no one that I'm really like, oh, that he immediately stands out to me. But I have to say, the cast here really did a fantastic job. Let's first talk about Jason Jones as Nate Parker Jr. I love this character. Jason Jones not only is very funny, because he is absolutely hilarious in this role, and he does a tremendous job as his character. Not only did I feel he did a great job with that, but besides that, his, comedic nature, that's beside the point. I mean, everyone knows that Jason Jones is funny, he can act very well, things like that. His character in general, I found quite compelling, because Nate Parker isn't exactly the most careful of characters. He makes a lot of bad decisions that he probably could have prevented himself with, but he just can't help but get himself invested in. I really did love the way his character was like that, why he ends up getting fired, I thought was definitely very well done. How he he withholds the secret from his family almost the entire season until he's eventually forced to reveal what's going on. There's also some stuff he's involved with, this drug business, and I found all that to be really well done. I really did love his character as a whole. I thought he definitely was very interesting. I like that, like I said, he's not a perfect guy. This is a guy who does make mistakes. There are a lot of things he does that he very much does regrets, and we don't know what's gotten him to be interrogated, but I really thought he did a great job here. It was very fun, but I also really liked his character, and I really thought that he really did carry the show quite well. I really did love what he had to do here. And then Natalie Zaya as Robin, I don't think is nearly as compelling as Nate, but I really did love their overall relationship. Robin is a character, like I said, she's not that compelling. There's stuff going on with her, definitely, that I did like seeing. Definitely, I thought was very well done. And I thought their marriage in general, I definitely really did like. There's a lot of ways they say things to their kids, and they don't exactly say them the way normal parents would. Like I said, they're not very careful people, and Robin's very much like that. But Natalie Zaya did a very good job in this role. There's a lot of crazy things she has to do in this season. Like, there's one episode where she ends up getting high off of, fruit gummies, and it's absolutely hysterical. I loved what she did here. She was definitely very funny. I thought that she definitely did do a really great job. And then the kids as well. Ashley, Gerashimovic and Liam Carroll as Delilah and Jared, who's eventually revealed to be named Jareb, also did a very good job here. I thought they actually got some very good very well talented kid actors who I don't think are experienced, but they did a very good job here. These two genuinely do feel like brother and sister. It's a lot of fun to watch these two bicker, and they've got their own like side storylines going on. I definitely really did like, especially something for Delilah that was a bit unpredictable that I thought was very well done. I like what they did with these actors. I thought in general the four of them worked very well together, and that family, there's enough of a reason to care about them to really love their characters, but it's because of the way the actors go about these characters that makes them feel even more real, and I really do love the way that they bonded as a family in the show. It was definitely very well done. So overall, I thought the cast here was really good. There are other characters here that I definitely could get into, but now let's get to the directing and the writing, because the way the directing is done in this show, it's a little bit different from other comedies, because like I said, it started off as your basic type of road trip comedy, in something in vein of like National Lampoon, which this very much is like. You know, if you've seen National Lampoon, those movies, this is very much like that. It's like that in the sense that, you know, constantly they'll stop somewhere, they'll get involved into something crazy, and they'll go through it, but it's very episodic in that way. It's like National Lampoon, but if it was like a comedy of error after nothing, that's very much what the show is, and they did actually a very good job with doing that, but not trying to replicate it. It very much stands out as its own thing, and I really did love the way the show did that. I thought it was very well handled in that way with the comedy of errors. I definitely really did love the way the show got into that. And I definitely did get invested into the overall story. But once you find out that whatever happened has landed them in trouble with the law, that's when this story becomes a lot more high stakes, because not only are we watching a family trying to get to Fort Lauderdale, which yes, Fort Lauderdale is the goal, you're also wondering what the hell could this family have done? I mean, obviously they've done something that's really bad that's gotten them in trouble with the law, and the whole season you're waiting to find out what exactly that is. And I really did love that mystery going on here. There's a lot of things that come together, and the show very much is like a puzzle in that way, and I really do love the way this was directed. I thought they did a very good job with that. And what I also love about the show is that there is actual consequences for what these characters do. Like, if something major happens, it stays major in the show. It's very much like BoJack Horseman, where if something big happens, it stays that way. For example, very early on the show, well, not very early on, but in episode 7, so like towards the end, we find out that their kid Jared has actually been named Jared because they put the wrong name on the birth certificate, and his name is actually Jared, and it stays that way throughout the show. They keep calling him Jared. His sister constantly makes fun of him for it, so things like that actually do stay, and I was very happy to see that. There aren't a lot of comedies where that happens, especially comedies like this, where that stuff actually sticks, and, you know, it actually does impact the show, and I was actually very well impressed with how much that did impact the show. I thought that definitely was really well done, how much that did have an effect on the show overall. I definitely really did like that. But now let's get to the writing here, which the writing here is really well done. I really did love the writing to the show. I think it's a lot of fun to watch. It's very funny. I was laughing almost almost every joke. There are a couple jokes that doesn't work, but I thought the jokes for the most part were very funny. I definitely really did love the jokes going on here. But the characters in general, what I really love about the show is that while the show is very funny, it does remember that you have to have things to do with the characters, and you have to make them compelling, and the show really takes the ability to do that, especially with that of Nate and Robin. Their marriage in general is one that's very interesting, because we get to the best episode by far out of all the episodes here is the episode called the episode is called The Road, where the road basically, they're driving and they're trying to tell Delilah and Jareb all about how they got married, and we eventually find out they actually did not get married. It's basically because they just never had the time to, and they just didn't really ever think to, and they're too careless to actually get married, and it's crazy to think about, but yeah, they're not actually legally married, and I thought that was definitely a very interesting twist, the way the show did that. We also find out that Nate was in a relationship with Robin's sister Vanessa at first, who Vanessa kind of appears out of nowhere. We don't know what's up with her, but she becomes a lot more integral into the story after this episode, where Nate basically says that him and Vanessa, they dated, but she turned out to be a lesbian, so he went to Robin, and then they started dating, and at first Robin thought that he was initially a creep, but they started to get to know each other, and it was actually a really sweet episode, but it's very well handled by seeing the kids comment on what's going on, and one of the best parts of this show is the way that said, Nate and Ron will tell something to Delilah and Jared, because like I said before, it's not like your typical type of conversations that parents and kids engage in. I mean, they don't try to hide anything. They say things in like the most vulgar way possible. I thought that was actually really funny the way the show did that. However, there's only so far you can go with it, because I do feel the show sometimes did get a bit too over the top and maybe could have been a little bit more grounded in that regard, because there are some episodes that I thought did get a little bit too silly and didn't handle things as well as they could have. For example, there's a 2-part episode that involves a bed and breakfast, and I think the second part was well done, but just this episode in general, it was very over the top, it was very silly, and it worked in the second part, but at first I was quite worried about where this was going to go, and I do think the show did get a bit too over the top at points. That was definitely something that I did have an issue with. But in terms of the episode structure, the show really doesn't become this, the show the whole time is a frame story. Like, definitely something is going on, but there's a lot of, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, detours within this show, where the show will venture into something else and will be a lot of standalone stories. I thought that was definitely very well done the way the show did that, and I will definitely say the show handles standalone stories a lot better than it does with actual, recurring stories. I think the recurring stories, they were strong, but they weren't exactly compelling enough to keep me locked in. Like, the whole thing going on with Nate's job, I thought it was well done, but it just wasn't enough to keep me hooked into the show. Like, it definitely did keep me away, and I like that eventually, she does find out what's going on, because she realizes that Vanessa's involved, she sees her, and realizes what actually happened to Nate's, and even something like that, where she eventually just realized that he did lie to her. These two still do love each other at the end of the day, and they are still together, and I like that she actually did stay loyal to him and that they actually did end up together. I thought that was definitely really well done. I think they did a very good job with that. I definitely did love their overall story, and like I said, you really do care about their marriage. I thought that was definitely a very well done story. But all this stuff with the drug business just got a little bit too overly complicated, and that really comes down to my main complaint of the show, is that the last 2 episodes, the show really did get a bit off the rails. I thought that the show, it was a lot more simple than I thought it was going to be, and when you eventually realize what the reason is why Nate's actually being interrogated, it really makes a lot of this first season feel very pointless, and it doesn't really make sense why we actually were told what happened here. That just doesn't make a ton of sense to me, and we'll get into that when we get to spoilers, but that definitely did take away from the overall impact of the show, because while I did enjoy this first season, you get to the end and you're like, well, what was really the point here? Why did we go on this whole story if that's the real reason why you are in pursuit of the family? It just felt very weird from what the rest of the show was trying to do, but I did love a lot of the story. I thought it was definitely very well done, but now let's get into spoilers, because I definitely do want to get into what ended up happening in the last episode that kind of did piss me off, but definitely did keep me intrigued. I just don't really understand why we had to have a whole season of it, but let's just get into it. So, very early on, as we know, like I said, the entire season we're waiting for, what the reason is that this family is being interrogated, or specifically Nate. Why is Nate being interrogated? Why are the law officers, why are these agents, questioning him? Why are they so interested in this story and all these details that are going on? And we eventually realize when we get to the end of the story that they were never interested in Nate's part of the story, that they just wanted to hear the rest of what was going on, and they're actually in pursuit of Robin, we find out, who has a lot more shady of a past than we thought she did. And while I do think it's interesting that the show got into that, because, we didn't know too much about Robin, we haven't really got into her character as a whole, we just know that her and Nate really do love each other, and that they don't make the best decisions. Robin clearly has had her fair share of some wild, encounters, and definitely a wild adulthood. Definitely she did some crazy things in her life that Nate has no idea about, and it is definitely a good cliffhanger. I thought it was definitely a well-done cliffhanger overall. It just made a lot of this season, to me, feel very pointless. Like, why do we have this whole story of Nate and the family going on some road trip if it only turned out to be because they want to get information on Robin? It made no sense to me. Why did they sit with him for hours and hours just listening to him talk about the story when in reality they just wanted information on Robin? It just felt so pointless. It made the whole story feel like it didn't matter. And yeah, sure, I got into the story of them on this drive, but after a while, when we realized that they got away and that they took the car and everything and that they safely got back to Fort Lauderdale, again, it just felt very pointless to me. I didn't understand why they had to go into this direction with the story. It just didn't really make it. And honestly, I don't know where we're going to go with the second season. Like, why is the show still called The Detour? Honestly, there's not much of a reason for it to still be called that. They clearly did make it back, and I don't really know where we're going to go in the second season, but at the same time, it does keep me interested. I just don't know why the show needs to continue. I don't really understand that. It really doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But overall, guys, I definitely did enjoy this first season. It's just that ending just felt very pointless, and I don't know where the show's going to go from there. But the other part of the finale that I definitely did enjoy is the reveal with Delilah, because as we can see throughout the show, while Nate and, Robin, they do try to pay attention to their kids, they just don't. Their kids end up doing their own sort of thing, and the kids a lot of time in the show are much smarter than the parents, and it works in the show, because like I said, Nate and Robin are just kind of careless, and because of that, Robin thinks she knows Delilah quite well, but what she doesn't realize that Delilah's actually been texting this boy the entire time, and they kind of are in some sort of a relationship, and she sees towards the end of the show that those two end up kissing. That reveal was very well done. Why? Because it basically did permeate the entire show. We could tell that Delilah and Jared knew what was going on. They knew to handle themselves better, and because of the careless decisions that Robin and Nate made, they didn't realize that, Delilah actually did have a boyfriend. I thought that reveal was very well done. I actually thought it did, it definitely did, it definitely did have an impact on the show, and it definitely did make the show have a point. Like, it didn't feel pointless like the rest of what was going on. But overall, guys, when it really does come down to it, I definitely did enjoy this first season. I think it was definitely very well told. It's a lot funnier than it could have been. It has actually some very well-developed characters. They took it into some very interesting directions. It's just the very end that made a lot of this feel very pointless, and I don't really know where the show's going to go, but at the same time, it definitely does intrigue me as to where they're really going to go from here. I just don't really know what's going to happen from here on out, but I am overall going to give this first season of The Detour a 4 out of 5 or a B+. So overall, guys, remember the season of The Detour. Let me know what you guys thought of the season overall. Loved your thoughts. And if you haven't checked out the show, I honestly would recommend it. I definitely did enjoy the show overall. Like I said, the characters actually do have consequences, things that stand, are long-term. There are a lot of things going on that we don't know about. I am interested in Season 2. I'm interested in seeing where the show is going to go. I just don't really know why we're going to continue after that cliffhanger. It just feels kind of pointless to me. But over, guys, my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Arrow. I know it took me a while to review, but I will see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.